Hey there, good evening. Nice to see you. It's time for the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Net's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, and in the second segment, filmmakers, which I say advisedly. But to get started, I'm just thrilled that the contributing writer who covers food, arts, and culture for the Bronx Times is here. E.T. Rodriguez, nice to see you again.
Hey, great to be here.
I guess we're all excited. People in the Bronx should be excited because the lifestyle page that you had been working on has now got a little bit of energy, doesn't it?
Yep, it's back and it's better than ever. It's now a six-page spread, and we'll be focusing on stories, lifestyle, arts, and culture that are going on in the Bronx.
hmm this is something that we know. We who live here know what's going on in the Bronx. There's a ton of stuff happening. It's really nice that Chris and the other folks at the Bronx Times are giving you the space now to really cover it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy about that. Like I said before, I am a Bronx kid, and this borough is really important to me, and it's just so underrepresented when it comes to those kinds of stories. And I'm happy to be able to do that.
Could you talk a little bit about your background and your interest in this? I know you've been a kind of a food and entertainment reporter for a while, but let's let people know who you are, so when they open up the newspaper and see the beautiful new lifestyles section, that they'll know who ET is.
Sure.
What is this all about for you?
Yeah, I grew up on Moshulu Parkway. I went to Lehman College for my undergrad, where I graduated with a degree in art history, bachelor's. Then I got my master's at the Craig Newmark School of Journalism. And, one of the things I learned in my journalism program was find a void and fill it. That's how you become valuable. And the void I saw was the lack of food, arts, and culture reporting in the Bronx. I mean, my reporting has gotten me recognized by WNYC, because not because I'm so great, but more because it's not enough reporting. I'm just one of the very few people that are focusing on the borough and that kind of content.
Right,
And
let me just interject, focusing on the borough in that way,
correct.
and because we know, by the way, I'm a Lehman graduate as well. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yes, I am. There's so much going on that people don't know about. And I just took a look at some of the stuff you wrote about in the past. The Bronx Zoo once had a human in captivity, which is beyond
Yeah.
crazy. I can't even characterize it. The every St. Patty's Day we get the shamrocks on the street, and you did the origin of the shamrocks. Um, I'm so glad you did the Grand Central Stones that are in Van Cortlandt Park, because I've walked and run and biked by there, and I said, "Wow, what a great story this is!" So you wrote that story. The other thing, which actually relates to the Lehman College thing, you wrote about this art exhibit that's there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, just to promote since you talked about being an art student at Lehman, just to promote our alma mater and what they've got there. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to go over there as soon as I get a moment, because of course we do Bronx Talk there. Tell me about that. Tell me about that art exhibit.
Yes. It's a beautiful exhibit, and it's all female artists. It's 45 female artists with about 60 works of art. And what it's doing, it's reclaiming the male gaze, right? The male gaze was coined in the 1970s. It's a phrase that women are depicted for the male eye, for the consumption of the heterosexual male. And this exhibit they're taking their bodies back. They're reclaiming their own perspective and their own vision on themselves. And it's just multimedia. It's in the space. There are parts of their paintings where there's literal fabric pouring out of the canvas. There's also an amazingly large rendition of a Renoir that's done specifically in spools of thread. And then there is
Wow.
this, I mean, it's just really, really big and colorful and
It,
in your face, and it's just a really fun exhibit
It
to go
it
check out.
sounds like it works on many different levels. In other
Absolutely.
words, that so you can look at it viscerally and just say as art, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so one thing we want to say to people who say, "Oh, I have my community has this event, or I'm doing this, or we've got a little music group that is happening. So let's see your email. We're going to put that up on the screen. It's etrodriguez317 at gmail.com.
Mhm.
Anybody who has something that they want to put up or thinks belongs in your column, there's a lot that belongs there, then please make sure you send it. The other thing I want to mention is the whole "did you know" um, concept in there, which is part of the whole lifestyles universe, right? I got that
Correct.
right? Tell us about "did you know,"
Yes.
because a lot of what I just told you was "did you know."
Yeah, I'm so glad that column is coming back. It's a column that Chris and I brainstormed together, Chris, the editor, and
Christian Falcone is the editor at the Bronx Times. Go
correct.
ahead.
And fun facts, interesting facts, historical facts about the Bronx. And it's back. And the first iteration of it being back was the Grand Central Stones, as we just talked about. Did you know that we have these stones that have been sitting in Grand Central Park for over 100 years? And yeah, and I'm definitely soliciting suggestions, because I'm doing the research by myself. I do the writing by myself. It's a big undertaking. It's a big historical undertaking. And if anybody can throw some fun facts at me that I'd be able to research, I would love that. So please send them my way.
What really, a lot of what you're telling us inspires me, not only about the growth of the paper, the fact that the paper understands that this is, so important to the Bronx, but your roots as a Bronx woman who grew up here and went to Lehman College. This means a lot to me because obviously I can relate to that sort of thing. In terms of that growing up in the Bronx, what is it that you take with you from that experience into this work? I mean, it seems very obvious, but one would think you have a lot of passion about it. One would think that you know about the borough, where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. Anyway, I'm just curious about your upbringing and how that translates into what you do.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really realize how valuable it was where I was from until I got older. I was in the Bronx. I was a Bronx kid, no big deal. And then as I started to learn that the Bronx is underrepresented in arts and culture space, that the Bronx doesn't get featured when it comes to restaurants, when I started to realize that the Bronx is so left out and then it has a bad rap and poorest congressional district, all these things, that's when I realized, well, it's not what all these people think it is. It's such a beautiful place with so many arts and so much history too. As a matter of fact, one of my stories, I'm going to be focusing on Woodlawn Cemetery. So, I said, we have to change that narrative. And if it's up to me, this kid that grew up in the Bronx, to do it, then I'm going to be that person.
Well, you and I obviously have something in common because I grew up in the Bronx and I've dedicated my professional life to doing this for essentially the same reason. The phrase that I've used for a lot of people, which is relevant here, it's like undiscovered territory. I mean, nobody knows we're here with the great artists and the great musicians and all that stuff. I mean, this is what the center of BronxNet is about. I should mention in this context, and you're welcome to. I mean, I'm sure you may have already done it. This painting behind me is a painting of Orloff Avenue. By Daniel Haubin, who is a great a Bronx landscaper. That's the kind of thing that we have going on here that nobody tells about. Um, are, are you super busy? Does it get crazy in terms of where do I turn first? Every neighborhood has got something. Every person knows somebody who's doing something. Does it get a little crazy? I mean, I know it does for us. Anderson, our producer, knows we're just so many people say, "God, we're making a movie, we're making a film, we're doing a painting, we have an art gallery, we have a concert." So does it get crazy for you?
It does. And, we're a very small team at the
Yes.
Bronx Times. And then, being that we've never really covered lifestyle and arts and culture before, it does fall on my shoulders to make sure that we have that covered. And so I'm fielding, I don't know, dozens of emails a day, press releases. Hey, we got this going, we got that. Some of it that's not pertinent to me, some of it that's going on in Florida. I'm just like, why are you sending me this email?
Well, because you're on the list now.
Right, right. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's the life I've chose, and I love what I do.
Mhm. What about the writing? As a writer, you could get lost in saying, "Wow, look at this art exhibit," or look at these paintings, or whatever it is. You get lost in that. How do you feel about being an arts writer in addition to, of course, wanting to promote and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, I'm torn. So I got into
Ah, you see, I knew I got you there.
writing because I like sharing experiences and sharing my voice. And so I would love to do magazine writing. And then I kind of got into news writing, and it's a whole different beast. And I have to remember to stay journalistic. And one of the things that Chris, the editor, always tells me is he's like, it's not a Pulitzer, just get it done. You know,
Well, because there is that deadline as opposed to a magazine, you may
right.
have a
And then I'm
month.
like, wait, but I have more interviews and I have more information. And,
Yeah,
the 600 story, I'm like, sorry, it's 1,000 words now,
yeah.
but I did it because I love writing, and I just, love being able to have that voice.
I think one of there are many really cool aspects that I'm lifting out of this conversation is literally that the fact that the Bronx Times recognizes how important lifestyles, who we are in the Bronx, how important that is to the people of the Bronx, and why they're dedicating a whole 6-page section to it. I mean, to me that shows, because I've obviously read the Bronx Times for years, shows growth in the paper, shows a great understanding of who the Bronx is.
I'm great. I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Great. So let's tell people to send you information. And
Yeah.
actually, I've got a couple of ideas when we're done with the show. I'm going to mention them to you. But it's Et Rodriguez at 317 at Gmail. Excuse me, Et Rodriguez 317 at gmail.com. What's the timing like? What are the days that you want to get information? Like, in other words, what is your week cycle work like, so that
There
people
is
can
none.
know I got to get it to ET by a
We're
certain
journalists, like I field every email, every phone
stupid
call,
question.
every minute, all the time. I mean, obviously, if it's something that's happening tomorrow, we don't want to get something,
Yeah, yeah, you can't do that.
we'd
Right.
like to get some, but more specifically, I'd like a lot of the did you know? If anybody can give me historical facts and information, help
Stuff
me
that
write this
people don't
column.
know about. You
Correct.
can turn that
Let's write
around
this
pretty
column
good.
together.
Listen, one thing we do know is that Et Rodriguez is one of us, and she's putting it out on the Bronx Times about lifestyles, about really who we are as people in the Bronx. Thank you so much for everything you do, and say hello to Laura and Chris and all my friends over there.
I will. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Gary. It's always a pleasure.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to do a Did You Know? We're going to do a film right after this.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
¿Qué color? Perfecto, amigo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. I am thrilled because one of my Bronx buddies is here. It is Edwin Torres. He is the associate producer of a new film. It's not that new, but it's a film, and that we're going to tell people about. Edwin, nice to see you, my friend.
Always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you for having me.
Just a little background for people who don't know about Edwin and my other buddy, Gregory Hernandez. They are the co-founders of the 48-Hour Film Challenge. Before we move into 1.5 million, which is what we're going to talk about, what is the 48-Hour Film Challenge, and what has it done to bring filmmakers together in the borough of the Bronx?
Well, thanks for asking, Gary. So the Bronx 48-Hour Film Challenge is a yearly challenge that takes place. It's a competition where filmmakers, filmmaking teams get to participate by writing, directing, editing, and then releasing a film, a complete short film, all in 48-hour time limit.
Yeah, make a movie in 48 hours, please. You know, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I made a movie, um, and it's been going on. You told me I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but it's been going for 5 years. Do you have a count of how many films you've gone through in these years? A zillion?
So since 2019, this
Yeah.
challenge has been going on, and yeah, we've been through. I have not counted the complete total of films, but every year we get at least 4 to 6 films.
Wow, that's tremendous.
Memorable.
No, it's just great what you're doing, and this leads us right into now. Let's be fair. Gregory was unavailable for this interview. Gregory is the producer of 1.5 million, a social impact documentary. Man, you cut right to the core, and Edwin, by the way, is the associate producer. But you cut right to the core of an issue that's not talked about in the Bronx. So why don't you talk a little bit about 1.5 million and what it's all about?
Absolutely. And Greg is also the director as well of that.
Okay.
So 1.5 million is a feature-length documentary that basically highlights the literacy crisis in the Bronx, as well as highlights the initiatives led mostly by Bronx people to counteract that literacy crisis.
Okay, now what do you mean by literacy crisis? I mean, we've got a wonderful network of libraries. In fact, in my neighborhood, over the past few years, they opened a brand new library, beautiful new building. So we've got that. What's the issue? Why is it a literacy crisis?
So it's a literacy crisis because we have a lot of great libraries here, especially the Bronx Library Center in Fordham.
Yes.
But we don't have a lot of bookstores. We don't have we have a handful of bookstores now, but we don't have a lot of places where book culture is really celebrated. We don't have the places where people can hang out and talk about books. Books are not really celebrated because you can't really talk and chat in a library unless there's like a special event happening. But also there's a crisis in terms of just the ability to read. There's a lot of children in the Bronx that do not have the ability or reading lower than their grade level.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's a big issue with that as well, and impacts education and impacts people's well-being.
So, the big moment that two things happened. One is that we really lost a resource, and number two, it inspired what you just said. It inspired our friend Noel Santos down there in the South Bronx at the Lit Bar, and others, Bronx Bound Books, etc. Was the moment that Barnes and Noble pulled out of Bay Plaza and Co-op City, right? That moment was like, wait a minute, now we have no bookstores? Like, are you nuts?
Yeah, that was a big moment.
That was a big moment.
Yeah, that's a big part of the documentary as well. And that impacted me as well because Bay Plaza, I would go there to see movies. And then before or after a movie, I would go to Barnes and Nobles and check out some of their books. So I think that inspired Greg as well to also start this documentary because he realized that he doesn't have any bookstores in his immediate area. He has to travel to another borough just to buy some books.
Of course, unless you want to buy them online, and that's frankly sucking the life out of the commercial book or the merchant book business, so to speak. And that is it's a really, really big problem. One of the things I liked about, and we're going to show a trailer in a moment. One of the things I really liked about the piece, especially as a Bronxite who knows what's going on in the borough, you really got the grassroots things. You did go to the Lit Bar and talk to Noel, and you did do all that stuff. I just thought the journalistic aspect of it was very, very strong.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Gary. That was a big interview for us. We had to get a bunch of crew members, people in my own network to help out on that shoot because that was such
Mhm.
a big deal for the movie.
All right, well, let's show a trailer. Oh, before we show the trailer, I'll give a little drum roll. Before we show the trailer, we should mention, and this is one of the reasons that you're here with us this evening. Uh, the film 1.5 million will be premiering on BronxNet on a Monday, this coming Monday, the 13th at 9:30 p.m. on channel 67 and 2133 on FiOS. And so that's kind of exciting for us because this is such an important documentary, if you will. So, are you ready, Edwin?
Absolutely.
You know every frame of this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 1.5 million, a social impact documentary feature about what they call the literacy crisis in our home borough, the Bronx. Take a look.
Illiteracy among adults is really a silent epidemic. And it is an epidemic that remains silent because unlike obesity or diabetes or cancer or other epidemics that we're familiar with, there's nobody studying and tracking adult illiteracy. There's an enormous investment in tracking test scores and academic performance of young children, but as soon as people have gone through the education system, they've turned 21, they've succeeded in high school or they haven't, that's it. We forget about it. We don't track it anymore.
I believe that the literacy crisis should definitely be on the national agenda. It should be also on New York's agenda. And frankly, I don't see that.
Bronx is blessed with many great libraries, but there's something where the larger culture has really withdrawn literacy from these communities, withdrawn text and print, and alienated people from a culture, excluded them from a culture that still is the dominant culture.
So much creativity is necessary to survive, and through that just brings this great, beautiful, vibrant culture. 4.5 years is a long time.
How do you graduate from high school not being able to read? Thousands of people in New York have graduated from high school over the years not being able to read.
All right, there we go. Congratulations. Um, you know, this was really interesting to me, and that was really essentially the last frames of that is poverty and illiteracy are intertwined. We know what the economics are like in our borough, and this is one of the downfalls. Listen, we know there are many things, whether it be housing or food insecurity and everything else, but this is one of the downsides, that there's not an educational culture, so to speak. I don't know how to describe it. You probably know better than I do.
Yeah, I mean, again, with especially what you just said, Gary, like people, if you're not able to read very well or read at your grade level, especially as an adult, then that keeps you from opportunities where you need to read or analyze data or writing. It's just career opportunities that are left out because of the lack of literacy that a person might have. So that means less opportunities, which means less money for them to bring home and provide for their families.
Do you make an act other than stating, quote unquote, the obvious, but investigating the obvious and having experts comment on it? I haven't seen the whole piece yet. Um, do you make a point at the end, like, how are we going to solve this? Or is this really a piece to just show what it's like? Because the solutions are many tentacles, multifaceted.
So in the documentary, yeah, we talk about the crisis and what's happening, but we also show what people mostly in the Bronx are doing to help counteract that. So there's a few local initiatives that I can name. One of those examples is Brandon Montez, who runs the Norwood Community Library, which is basically in my neighborhood every weekend, for a few years actually since we started with this, since I got onto this documentary. he's been just giving away free books on the street. He has a desk and kids can come. They're just
Wow.
all free. So that's just one example. And then there's like all these other little initiatives happening. There's like, like Word Up Books, Bronx Bound Books. So there's these other things, other organizations that people are putting together to showcase like, hey, like there is book culture. People do read here. People read a lot of books, little libraries. So there's like little solutions that the film highlights to showcase.
Well, one of the things, like I'm preaching to the choir here, that happens with filmmakers is that through the process of doing a documentary like this, you learn something. What did you discover from talking to people about it? I have some thoughts about it, but tell me, for you making the film, being part of this effort, what'd you learn? What do you come away with? What's your thoughts about it?
Yeah. So I discovered a lot, especially even in my own neighborhood, of just initiatives and things that people are doing to just provide books for the community beyond the library.
That it really was out there. There really are people who are really trying to do this.
Yeah, there are people that are
Fascinating.
providing the resources of books, that are low cost or even free, more than just a library. That you don't have to have a library card to go out and read a book. You can just find these initiatives and get these books as well. And then people do really want to read. It's not like there's a kind of a stigma where people in the Bronx, like people don't really read as much.
Right.
People want to read.
They underestimate us all the time. There's no question about it. What I like is that rather than you discovering, oh my goodness, it's there's a big void here, etc., you discovered that, wait a minute, people really do want to do this, which of course doesn't surprise me, of course, having lived and worked in the Bronx for a very long time. Well, so let's just remind people, BronxNet will be showing a 1.5 million on Monday at 9:30, right after Bronx Talk, as a matter of fact, and that's channel 67 and 2133. Does this inspire you and Gregory to come up with something new? What's next? Am I allowed to ask that, or it's too soon?
Oh, like another project?
Yeah.
So really what's next is just really getting this film out there. This film is actually going to be on streaming services upcoming. It's going to be on Filmocracy, Roku, and Hoopla. I believe that's happening around December. So that's the way that people can watch the film. There's also going to be a film festival, the Yofi Film Festival in Yonkers. There's going to be
you're going to be part of that. Wow.
There's going to be a screening there as well.
All right.
Yeah, multiple screenings.
So I won't push you to come up with another idea and another film just yet. Let's get this one done. Listen, you guys are great, and you're promoting the right things. You're using our hometown as the Bronx as your universe, which is so important. And so obviously give Greg a big hug from me, and to you too. 1.5 million. Look for it. The film is premiering on Roku in January. And again on BronxNet Monday night, the 13th at 9:30 p.m. on our home channel of 67 and 2133. Edwin Torres, you're the man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Great. Okay, that will do it for the Bronx Buzz. And we thank E.T. from E.T. Rodriguez from the Bronx Times. She, of course, covers stuff just like this. And that's what it's about. We'll see you next week. Good night.